Pope Francis in the hospital. An update from the Vatican on the health of the Holy Father. Coronavirus crisis. As the global death toll reaches a grim milestone, an update on the Olympic Games later this month in Japan. Day in court. New developments from pro-democracy advocates in Hong Kong. And ancient discovery, what archaeologists found in Israel. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, July 8th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The Vatican has released an update on the health of Pope Francis. It says the Holy Father suffered from a fever following intestinal surgery. In a statement today, the Vatican says the fever appeared 3 days after Sunday's surgery, but tests later came back negative. The Holy See says Pope Francis is eating and moving around his room at Gemelli Hospital. He also greeted young patients in a cancer ward. Outside, pilgrims are praying for him.
Che sia il Papa, che sia Francesco, che sia Giovanni, Paolo II, Luciani, e il Papa.
And this religious sister says that she is praying for Pope Francis, just as she does for others who are sick and in need of help. The Holy Father had half of his colon removed on Sunday because of what the Vatican says was a severe narrowing of the large intestine. And of course, we will continue to follow this story. Well, the U.S. blames Iranian-backed militias for multiple rocket attacks across Iraq in the last 48 hours. Inside Baghdad's green zone, there were no casualties despite damage from 3 rockets earlier today. Yesterday, rockets caused minor injuries at an air base in western Iraq, which houses U.S. troops. An Iranian-backed militia leader had vowed to avenge 4 deaths from a recent U.S. airstrike. Well, as the Pentagon continues its withdrawal of all U.S. troops from Afghanistan, foreign leaders are sounding the alarm.
Там усиливается угроза террористических нападений.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the chances of terror attacks has increased because of the troops leaving and also because the Taliban is continuing to advance across Afghanistan. The Pentagon says it wants all U.S. troops out of the country by the end of next month. And joining us now with analysis is Clare Lopez, founder and president of Lopez Liberty LLC. Clare, welcome back. Great to see you. First off, your thoughts on the U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan and what impact do you think this will have on the country?
Well, the United States has committed, as your piece just noted a minute ago, to a full withdrawal by the end of August, by the 31st of August, end of next month. There will remain about 650 U.S. troops to guard the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. But as you say, after 20 years of a U.S. presence in this country, in Afghanistan, we are now departing, which is a major development for the region. It is noted, of course, that the Taliban is advancing very rapidly, taking over large swaths of Afghanistan, in particular in the north, either taking over or contesting over 200 districts in Afghanistan, basically closing in on Kabul and the central part of the country. But notably, it is in the north that the leadership of the country has its power base, and that falling to the Taliban is a very serious development. For the region, Russia, of course, now sees a significant threat developing once again on its own southern flank, while China sees it differently, rather, and looks to expand its Belt and Road Initiative and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor into Afghanistan with opportunities that it sees for things like obtaining access to rare earth minerals. But for the United States, it's a serious development that the Taliban and its allies, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, present there as well, and of course the long-standing alliance of the Iranian regime and Hezbollah training, backing of the Taliban, the worrisome prospect that Afghanistan once again turns into a launching point for Islamic Jihad attacks against the United States or others.
Yeah, President Biden spoke this afternoon about the situation in Afghanistan, and afterwards, some reporters asked questions. Among them, somebody did ask, will the Taliban take over? And also, will the Afghan government collapse? President Biden said no, and that he had confidence in the Afghan military. Claire, what do you think? You don't seem to me, at least, being all that confident of that.
No, of course, the president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, paid a visit to Washington, D.C. and the White House to meet with the Biden team just at the end of June, a week or a bit more ago. And of course, both are trying to sound optimistic, the leadership of Afghanistan and the Biden administration. But I think, unfortunately, once the United States really finally pulls out, it will be only a matter of time before the Taliban really takes over most of Afghanistan again, and probably will be ruling in Kabul no later than autumn this year.
And Claire, we probably have about a minute or so left, but I'd like to get your final thoughts, and also ultimately, how do you see this playing out and down the road, the impact on the United States?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, of course, it's been 20 years. We've suffered well over 2,400 killed in action there, and over 20,000, almost 21,000 injured in combat in Afghanistan. But we never fought to win. We never ever took on Islamic Jihad, because that is what the Taliban is fighting. And moreover, by 2004, we had helped the Afghans to write a new constitution that placed the country under Islamic law, under Sharia. And so we never understood, our leadership never understood what it was up against, what it was fighting, and what the Taliban was fighting, or why the Afghan people would find more commonality with the Taliban than infidel invaders, which is how they see us and our coalition partners.
Well, Claire, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there, but thank you so much for your analysis. We appreciate it. Clare Lopez,
Sure.
founder and president of Lopez Liberty, LLC. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, nearly 4 dozen pro-democracy advocates appeared in a Hong Kong court today. They were facing charges under the new security law imposed by China's communist government. The advocates were charged with conspiracy to commit subversion as part of an unofficial primary election 1 year ago. It is another exercise of the Beijing-backed law, which is constricting political dissent following the anti-government protests of 2019. The global death toll from COVID-19 now exceeds 4 million. That is according to figures from Johns Hopkins University. Meanwhile, in Japan, there will be no spectators in attendance at the Summer Olympics after a 4-week state of emergency was declared because of the pandemic. One Japanese official favors cancellation of the July 23rd opening ceremonies. Here in the United States, we have seen a wave of recent cyber attacks, from crippling a major East Coast gas distributor to forcing the world's largest meat producer to shut down. And now a group of senators wants to give law enforcement new tools to go after cyber criminals. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Let's face it, cybercrime is up, way up. According to the latest FBI annual report, cybercrime has increased more than 70% since 2019, and losses have exceeded more than $4 billion.
We have known for over a decade that critical infrastructure was the top target of cybercriminals.
A bipartisan group of senators unveiled legislation intended to crack down on cyber criminals who have increasingly posed a threat to critical U.S. organizations. Senators Lindsey Graham, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Richard Blumenthal introduced the International Cybercrime Prevention Act, which would enhance criminal violations for hackers targeting critical infrastructure such as dams, power plants, hospitals, and election equipment.
This law goes after the criminal syndicates, but we also have to go after the host countries.
The bill allows authorities to confiscate communication devices and other property used to commit cybercrime, plus enhances prosecutors' ability to shut down botnets and other digital infrastructure used for a wide range of illegal activity.
We're taking down the infrastructure that enables that money laundering, the renting of malware that is part of that infrastructure, and the commissioning of agents.
Senators say that there ought to be some red faces in both government and the private sector on cybersecurity following the recent attacks.
How could the single source of gasoline for the East Coast and many parts of the East Coast be shut down in 2021? Clearly, the private sector has not done its job.
Lawmakers hope the bill will make it to the floor before the August recess. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are urging President Biden to be tougher on Russia for the recent cyber crimes. Senator Lindsey Graham tells me nothing takes place in that country without Vladimir Putin knowing about it, although the Kremlin denies any wrongdoing. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
As Tropical Storm Elsa continues its path along the southern U.S. states, a suspected tornado spawned by Elsa touched down with minimal damage at a naval base in Georgia. With its rains, the system has tropical storm winds of up to 45 miles per hour. Elsa has claimed one life and has triggered warnings throughout the coastal mid-Atlantic toward New England. Some sad news from the collapsed condominium building that is outside of Miami. The rescue efforts have officially become a recovery mission, and last night there was a prayer service. At a vigil, the Salve Regina was chanted by emergency workers, religious members, and grieving families. 60 people are now known dead, with at least 80 others still missing. Funerals continue for those who died in the disaster. At the nearby Church of St. Joseph, a funeral mass was celebrated for two young sisters, ages 4 and 11, who were buried in the same coffin. Father Juan Sosa told those in attendance that death does not define the sisters nor the faithful. He added God's strength is present even in difficult times. Coming up, analysis of the death of a jailed priest who died in India earlier this week. A couple in Florida is suing a Catholic school and asking for a return of a large donation. The couple says the school is not adhering to Catholic teaching on issues of race and same-sex attraction and has embraced, quote, a woke culture. The school says its curriculum is based on Catholic values. In India, a Catholic priest died earlier this week after spending the past 8 months in jail on terror charges. Father Stan Swamy denied the charges. The 84-year-old Jesuit says he was being targeted by the government for his activism on behalf of India's poor and members of its lowest castes. He died several days before his bail hearing. And joining us now is Nadine Maenza, Commissioner for the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Nadine, welcome back. Good to be with you. USCIRF has condemned what it describes as the deliberate neglect and targeting of Father Swamy. For those who may not be familiar, can you tell us more about this case and how you believe his rights were violated?
Yes. So in October 2020, Father Swamy was arrested alongside 15 other activists and academics and charged with terrorism under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is called the UAPA, for suspicion of ties to organizations accused of instigating violence in 2018. So following the eruption of violence between low-caste Dalits and right-wing Hindu groups, Indian authorities alleged that those arrests had been linked to Maoist rebels, who are also active in several states. Now, Father Swamy has maintained his innocence and rejected any links to these rebels, and certainly there's no proof that we have seen that there is any way that he is connected. But it appears that he was targeted over his work and writings on caste injustice, struggles faced by marginal groups. So we have seen that this law being used to detain other advocates, the media, academics, religious minorities. So this seems to be more of the same, which are these kind of laws that India has instituted we're also seeing the same sort of thing with the anti-conversion laws, where they really have these laws in the books that they use to oppress either religious minority groups or advocates for them, or anyone that's speaking out. And so, unfortunately, he was arrested. He, his Parkinson's disease, 84 years old, already had compromised health. He's been denied bail. He did get very sick in May. They denied bail. And so seeing pictures of him with chains to in a hospital bed with an oxygen tank, it was really disturbing. Clearly, he was not a flight risk and, should have been released.
Yeah, and Nadine, what has been the reaction to the news of his death in India and also around the world? What have you heard?
It has been wide condemnation. We've had condemnation from the State Department here. We've seen the United Nations condemn, other UK condemn as well. So it's been a very wide range of condemnation that an older sick man during COVID would be imprisoned in these conditions, never had a conviction, never had a trial. So he was really in detention all this time, really in dangerous conditions, and really didn't get medical care until the very end of his life. And even then, as I said, he was in chains. So it shows the kind of conditions that religious minorities, or those that speak out about against the government's treatment of them, how conditions have deteriorated in recent years in India.
Yeah, and I know that you've said his death is a reminder of the egregious and ongoing persecution of India's minority religious communities. What more can you tell us about that situation? Also, particularly for Christians.
Yes. Well, so what we've seen is, this negative trajectory in India. So the BJP-led government, they're a Hindu nationalist government, and they have been embracing these policies that have really changed the culture in India. India has a long, thousands of years history of multi-religious, multi-ethnic communities living in peace together. And their constitution actually protects freedom of religion. And so it's really disconcerting to see all these laws being passed that really violate their own constitution. We see mobs acting with impunity, targeting minorities. The national government, as well as the state government, passing discriminatory laws and policies that limit the lawful activity of religious minorities, and violent crackdowns on dissent, as we're seeing. So this combination has made it a really difficult place for people of all faiths, Muslims, Christians alike. These anti-conversion laws, so many of them do seem to be targeted at Christians, where it's an easy way to just accuse a Christian of forcing someone to convert. And just the accusation alone is enough to cause violence. We certainly have not seen any forced conversions in India, so this law is being used as a way to persecute believers. The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was amended in June by Parliament, and I think a lot of viewers probably heard about how organizations like Compassion International, Amnesty International were shut down as a way of keeping some of these Christian organizations from being able to do important humanitarian work, and also a closing of civil space society. So the media is facing intimidation and harassment. They're not speaking out the way they could about the religious freedom violations that are occurring, and so it's creating a dangerous environment for non-Hindus, but we're particularly seeing, of course, with the Muslim community and also with Christians.
And Nadine, so much more we could talk about. I wish we had more time, but we have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for coming on and spreading awareness about this. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for highlighting these important issues. We appreciate that as well.
Up next, a closer look at the call from Pope Francis for women to be more involved in the church. Tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, a Catholic member of Congress gives his analysis of his recently introduced pro-life legislation, the Care for Her Act.
It says fundamentally that we are committed to care as a community for the journey of life, for the unborn child at the moment of birth and after birth, with this full complement of services, both medical as well as mentorship, housing, employment. We also give a tax credit for the unborn child. We do that for children, and we do move it now to the unborn child.
Republican Jeff Fortenberry from Nebraska tells host Catherine Hadro whether the bill will receive bipartisan support. That is tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly at 10 p.m. Eastern. Well, the Vatican calls violence against women, quote, intolerable. In a statement to the United Nations Human Rights Council, the Holy See reiterated that any violence, including rape, constitutes a grave violation of human rights. The Vatican also called for an end to silence and indifference toward such actions. Well, one focus for Pope Francis is for women to become more involved in the Catholic Church. As part of that initiative, 6 schools associated with the Vatican have organized a joint diploma on women in the Church. Our next guest is part of that important work. Joining us now from Rome is Anita Cadavid, director of the Institute of Higher Studies on Women. Anita, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Tell us more about this joint diploma in women in the Church and also who organized this initiative.
This diploma was, it came to us as a great idea in 2019. As a way to respond to Pope Francis's call to deepen the reflection of women's role in the Church. So in 2019, we began this course just as the institute within the Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum here in Rome. But last year, we acknowledged that it would be a great idea to ask other universities, other pontifical universities, to help us creating this joint diploma and to, as members of the scientific committee and also as teachers in this diploma, so it can be a project that's not only belongs to our institute, but also as a pontifical initiative.
And what courses are being offered? What can you tell us?
This joint diploma was an intensive one in 2 weeks, from June 19th to July the 3rd. And it was structured in 4 different modules. The first one was a social historical one, because we need to know where we are in history and what are the feminine icons that have given the Church lots of input, and that, for example, we can think recently on Madeleine de Prel, Chiara Lubick, Santa Francesca Cabrini. So, and all of these women have given a great input and missionary input in the Church, and that we have to value and to acknowledge it. And afterwards, we had an anthropological module that had a philosophical input and also a theological input.
And Anita, ultimately, how do you think this will help women become more involved in the Catholic Church?
Firstly, we need to acknowledge that we all need formation. And there are lots of documents that the Church has offered all the baptized about the role of lay people. But right now, I think that we need formation for clergy, for lay people, men and women. And in this way, I think this activity it's just offering that's what we need. And also the activity to try to get people to know this project, because it's not only a joint diploma. For me, it's a project that I would like to be a worldwide activity. So I believe that it offers formation, and I think it's what we need right now. Firstly, to acknowledge our identity as women in the Church, as baptized women, and as our baptism has a mission that comes with it. So we have to acknowledge this and to get formation to really live that baptism, and with consciousness, and also with the sense of mission, the mission that is the mission of the Church at the end.
Well, Anita, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of that with us. We really appreciate it. Anita Cadavid, Director of the Institute of Higher Studies on Women. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you. It's been a pleasure.
And finally tonight, a spectacular discovery in Israel was revealed to the public today, and it is around 2,000 years old. Experts believe they have found what appears to be an ancient luxury banquet hall. The building was constructed west of the Temple Mount. The find dates back 2,000 years to the Second Temple period. It adds to other Holy Land discoveries which have been unearthed since 1867. That is incredible. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.